All right, I think we're live.
Yep.
Let's
First
do
time
it.
ever.
All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Comics Grind. I am one of your hosts, Nico Rodriguez.
And I'm Ken, aka Comic Ken on YouTube.
And welcome back to another weekly comics discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a super special one for you today. And thank you for those of you who are joining us live, right? This is our very first live stream that we're doing on the channel.
Yep.
Ken and I have been kind of kicking back the idea back and forth to kind of do this. We didn't really find a time until now, so I'm excited for this. It could maybe end up being kind of a routine thing that we do. We shall see how it goes and what you guys' reactions are to it. So if you guys are here, go ahead. If you got any questions, comments, and all that kind of good stuff, drop them in the comments, and we'll be sure to get to them as we go through the show. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our very special guest for tonight's episode. He's a guy that we've been talking a lot about on this podcast for a good while now. He is in my opinion, one of the iconic comics artists of the modern day industry. And we are very fortunate and happy to have him here with us. He is the writer and artist of the brutally amazing Axe Wielder John. He is also known for his work on the very popular Image series called Manhattan Projects with that he did with Jonathan Hickman. Tons of covers, awesome comics voice. His name is Nick PITARRA. Let me get you in here, Nick. Where you at? And there we go.
Hey, there it is. We made it.
Yep.
I gotta bring Nico everywhere with me to give me an introduction. I like that premier comics voice. That's good stuff right there. I like that. I like that.
This is how we do it here on the channel, man. Thanks so much for joining us, dude.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for finally having me. You know, Ken comes to my house for the last 5 years, eats pizza. We complain about the comics industry. We talk about what we love and hate. But 29 episodes of y'all's podcast before I can get on it. 29 episodes.
We have to make it professional for you, man.
I mean, after about 3 or 4, I'm like, all right, he's going to ask me soon. And then after about 15, 16, I'm like, well, I ain't going to order this guy pizza anymore. He's out.
They were all trash before.
So you're back, Ken. You're back.
And to add injury to insult, I saw Nick. I saw Nick in Houston over here at Bedrock City Comic Con, and he was asking me, "Dude, why are you not getting me on the show?" And I was putting it all on you, Ken. It was all.
Oh, dude, I had to beg to get on this show. I had to beg. Yeah. I had to go to Nico and with my hands out, and I pulled my pockets were empty, and I was like, "Come on, dude.
Oh man,
you gonna help me out or what?" But yeah, thanks for having me on. I follow you guys. I probably listen to at least half the episodes when they pop up. They usually pop up on Thursdays, right, or somewhere around then.
Yeah.
It's cool to see you guys. I think this is a really important aspect that people leave out in the comic book industry: the social media aspect and building an audience and building. It's kind of like a UFC fighter. It's not about the fight; it's about the fighter's journey, and you want to see where they go. And I always tell young artists it's actually social media in a lot of ways, but it's great in a lot of ways too, because you can get people invested in you early. And even if you're not ready yet, you can show that drive for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. And when you're ready, then they're already going to know who you are. They're already going to know your work ethic. They're already going to know your brand. And it's something us older guys, we got to get on board with. So yeah. Y'all are doing good work.
Thanks for that, man. Thanks for that. Yeah. Ken, what you got, dude? I know you got a burning question that you want to ask Nick before we get started. What you got?
Oh no, it was just just a quick little introductory question. Basically, like, what do you want the fans to know about you? Everyone knows you're Nick PITARRA, but like, what are you all about in comics? And what do you want the fans to know?
Well, first off, I don't think I'm known in comics. I realized about a few years ago that I was just one of the Nicks that worked with Hickman. There was Nick Dragato on East of West and Nick PITARRA on Manhattan Projects. And I realized that I was never going to be a complete creator unless I was going to start writing and drawing my own work. And something with Axe Wielder John in particular, what I really liked was looking at some of my favorite creators instead of putting a digital avatar out there that you use on all your social media, they've actually built a character. Like if I say Mike Mignola, you instantly think Hellboy. If I say Madman, you think Mike Allred. If I say Shaolin Cowboy, you think Jeff Darrow. If I say Usagi Yojimbo, you think Stan Sakai, or Eric Powell the Goon. I really think, for me, I think this point in my career, I'm really focused on building my avatar in the industry, and I'm going all in with Axe Wielder John. I want you to see Axe Wielder John and be like, oh, that's that Nick PITARRA guy. You know, like I think that's cooler than being a fill-in artist randomly here or there. You know what I mean? Like I really think building your own little brand and putting all your creative energy into a story that you love and a character that you love that's going to be yours forever is my focus now with my career. And that was like an epiphany I had before I started John, that I want to build a long story, which everyone says don't do long stories, but I didn't care. I was like, I'm gonna do it so cool that you're gonna want all of them, you know? And then like what I want people to know, because I think you guys are more focused on breaking in and making it happen, is, man, go all in. You know, like I had a full-time job until I was 31 years old, and I'm 41 now. So I've been working in the industry full-time for 10 years, but I always was fully committed to doing comics, you know. And you'll find that the people like you going to the Kubert School now, Ken, you'll see those kids that stop drawing for too long and they regress, or stop drawing and disappear. The only thing that the people that don't make it have in common, all of them have in common, is they end up quitting or getting discouraged or getting distracted or doing other things. Even when I had a full-time job, all of my vacation time was spent going to shows. All of my extra money I was getting was buying drafting tables, buying light boxes, buying the newest equipment, buying Adobe Photoshop, learning how to color. I was using the job to supplement my comic book creating career, you know, like I was all in, you know. And so I don't know if you can make it if you don't go all in. I think you need a balanced life, obviously, and then figure out what comics is going to be for you. But going all the way, you know. And that was, with me, it was entering contests. That's how I got discovered, was a lot of online contests, get published as a cover artist or do a pinup for somebody or whatever. And I entered a bunch of different contests. One was Comic Book Idol and Comic Book Resources, and I ended up being a finalist in that. And that's how Jonathan Hickman found me and Marvel kind of discovered me. And I lost the contest, but I ended up being a finalist in it. And then the Wildstorm Talent Search was like in 2006, and that was like Jim Lee and Scott Dumbier and Ali Garza and all those guys. They were letting you draw one of these Wildcat stories, and then you had to fly to LA to show your samples, and if they liked them, they picked you, and you got to enter another contest. And I did that too. But man, every time I did any of those contests, there were so many people that said, "You're not ready yet. Don't enter those contests," you know. But you'll realize, since you guys are on a path of doing something different than the standard people around you in your day-to-day lives, they're going to tell you can't do it, you know, or a lot of them will, or they'll be like, you know, God bless you, good luck, but they have doubts. But like, I really think, you know, a big hero of mine's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he has this thing like, always be willing to fail, think outside the box. Everything is in life for me is a system. It's like there's safety in the system, being normal, you know, you're in the group. The second you leave the herd, everyone inside the circle's worried about you, your parents, they're laughing at you because you're going to fail when you leave the circle. But the second you succeed, a few people will be like, whoa, how did he do that? But right away, they'll be like, he got lucky. But you succeed again, and then all of a sudden the circle grows. There's 3 or 4 more people that think they can do it too, you know? And I think a system has atrophy if the system's just self-referential. But also there's danger when you leave the herd too. You know, you get picked off, you do fail. But I've always been a person that wants the adventure with my career. You guys are on the path of wanting that adventure. And that comes with thinking differently, you know, and work. The only consistent thing is working very hard, you know, and pushing yourself. The coolest
Right.
thing about comic art is you're going to find the guys you want to be like or imitate or influenced you. You can always be chasing those guys, but the only person you got to be day to day is yourself. You know,
Right.
like I only got to beat Nick from a couple of days ago because that's the path. The journey is your system upgrading, your PS1 going to a PS5. It isn't
Yeah.
looking at somebody who's an alien out there and trying to catch them with your 8-bit Nintendo system. They can inspire you and they might have the jobs you want, but you're going to have to upgrade that computer system, level up, as we call it in the industry.
Right.
That's going to be on you. And there's a lot of reward knowing that you're investing in yourself when you're staying up all night drawing, buying art books, taking the time to learn the craft of comic book storytelling.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, for me, man, I would want people to know that, man, I'm all about comic books, dude. I'm surrounded by it day to day. So
Yeah.
much so that I look around my room and I'm like, is this stuff, did I build this room or is this room building me? You know, you surround it, you know
Right.
what I mean? Like you surround it with all this book and pop culture and all this stuff you're absorbing and you're spitting it back out. You're absorbing it, putting your own spin on it. It's come back out of your hand. But like this stuff is building you at some point, you know, this is your influences. And I'm like in the Tesseract right now of pop culture with where I'm at. I don't know if the room's building me or I'm building it, but
Yeah.
it's spit out Axe Wilder John, and I'm pretty proud of it. So
That sounds like the grains of like some really cool indie horror comic or something. I kind of like
yeah.
Nick, to kind of go back just a little bit. So before you were entering all those contests and everything, were you making comics and stuff before that, or were you kind of just maybe doing like more pinup stuff and entering those in, and then that kind of led to the comic pages competitions, or were you drawing like pages and stuff before that?
I never drew my own story. I would always search out sample pages, like sample scripts online. Like Brian Michael Bendis had a Ultimate Spider-Man script that floated around, or someone had a Batman script. And how I broke in was, excuse me. How I broke in was I would work on those sequentials, and those sequentials would train me, right? Like, okay, now I've got to draw Batman running through a room. I've got to know perspective now. I've got to learn anatomy now. I've got to learn, and really I use perspective to teach me how to plug in the shapes. And yeah, I would use my vacation time at work, and every 6 months, 3 months, I would do another 3 or 4 page sample, and I would try to level up every time. And it might have been me redrawing pages 10 times, you know. And then whenever I finally started, people started like, oh, $50 a page, $100 a page. Like it still wasn't enough money, or the projects weren't interesting enough for me to really stick with it or do them, you know. So I never really broke in that way. And then I kept doing the samples more intricately with better work. And then with the Comic Book Idol book, that was the loser of that contest. There was 200 entries, and you could see them because it was a forum. You could see everything. And I entered that. They were going to pick 10 contestants to compete against each other, and the winner got like a pinup in an image book or something like that if you made it to the end. And it was a weekly contest. So you had to do like 3 to 4 pages a week for like 6 weeks.
Wow.
So it was a lot of work. So I just took off of work and just did it all.
Right.
But the every week they had a new guest judge, and one was Ryan Otley from Invincible, one was D.B. Sobolski, just a few different random people in the industry. And that was the first time I really had to stop and like, can I do 3 pages in a week, you know? And luckily I could at that point. I had to pull all-nighters and lose my mind. And then I ended up coming in 5th because you were like voted online, you voted off online or whatever. It was online voting. And then the same day, I felt really good. I was really proud of myself because I'd done so much work and put so much into it, though. And that day, I got an email from Marvel, and they said this new writer named Jonathan Hickman wanted to work with me. I don't know if y'all know Hickman's work, but at the time, he had only done the nightly news at Image. And I don't know if you've ever read the nightly news, but it's all like infographics, you know. It's like,
oh really?
So I went and bought. Yeah.
No, I remember the first time I opened up Black Monday Murders, and I'm just like, oh god, what am I getting?
Yeah. So I did the same. I'm like, this guy must love Frank Quietly and Seth Fisher and Jeff Darrow if he wants to work with me. and I go to the comic shop. I buy Nightly News, and it's even more infographics. It's like all infographics. And I was like, dude, the main character of this book is a pie chart. You know, like it's, you know, like it's. But then I called him. I wrote Marvel. I was like, man, this guy's changing my life. You know, he wants to work with me. So I got his number from John Barber, who is the editor at Marvel, and then called up Hickman, and I was like, man, I just want to thank you, man. This is a dream come true. You changed my life. And he's like, oh, we're going to do awesome work together, you know? And he was like, no big deal. So I actually got to see John. I hadn't seen him in like 6 years. I saw him in New York Comic Con. He was like not a guest, but he was roaming around. So he had some big meetings in New York or whatever, but he popped in the show to say hi. So I got to give him a big hug, tell him I love him. And, you know, he did. He changed my life. So
nice.
Cool, dude.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of how I got my first gig. My first real published work was Marvel Comics Presents. I got like a 48-page story in that ran for, I think, 6 to 8 issues. Yeah, 6 issues, 8 pages an issue, something like that. So
nice.
And was that kind of the moment that you switched to full time, or did it?
No. Like me and Hickman bounced around some other ideas. I had started getting some other offers or a lot of tryouts. And once Marvel saw my pages, they kind of circulated at the other offices, and they would like, you want to try out for this or that? I tried out for a few things, but I was going to school. I got my teaching degree from the University of Houston. So I got my minor in education. And yeah, so I did that, and I was finishing that. So I was working at Marvel and like going to art classes at University of Houston. And then I had a couple really great teachers there. Oddly enough, the teacher's last name was Hickman also. And he ended up giving me a scholarship and offering me to teach the illustration class while I was still like going there, you know. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, it was cool. Like I know it's a competition with yourself, but I actually love the competition of like, I want to draw and write a better story than you. I want to draw in those art classes. I want to draw a drawing that's going to be better than everybody's. I used to love those critique days and stuff. I think,
yeah,
you know, I know you guys might have a PG show, but pulling it out and putting it on the table sometimes is cool too, right? You know, like showing it off, you know, show what you got. There's like I love sports. I love sports. You guys are unmonetized now, so you're welcome. But yeah, I love sports. I love competition. And then there's that part of you that, and I want to chase those guys down. You know, I know I'll never catch some of the guys that I follow. They're just too amazing, but I do want to be, I want them to know who I am, you know, like I got to meet Raphael Grample at New York Comic Con, and that trick about John being my icon kind of worked because he, as I was waiting in line, I was going to bring him a book. There was a lot of foreign artists in New York Comic Con, and I think I have a European style, you know, so they're kind of slightly attracted to it. So I had the book, and I saw his handler was looking at the book before I got there, and then I handed it to him, and he's like, I know you. You're the guy with the chop. And I'm like, yeah, you know, like he knows of John, you know, he doesn't know me, but he knows of John. And I'm like, dude, that's the goal, right? Like the goal is to make him my avatar. So when you see that guy, you think of me, you know, I'm the next thought, you know? And so that was super cool. And we got to talk about his work on Batman, on Gargoyle of Gotham, and his stuff on Mesmo Delivery and stuff. Which, he's amazing. So he was a really sweet guy. Yeah. So, yeah.
Speaking a little bit of New York Comic Con, so this was kind of your first kind of big show with Axe Wielder, right?
Yes.
How did it go? Was it kind of everything you expected and everything?
It was incredible. I drove up and picked up my assistant editor on the book, Spencer Clausen. I drove up and picked him up, and he was in Arkansas. So we drove to Arkansas. Then we drove and picked up the toy guy because we're making this action figure. The toy guy is Justin. I don't know what to say his last name. It's like a French name, Sirius or whatever. But we're making this fully articulated Axe Wielder John action figure.
In the flesh.
Yeah, in the flesh. So we're doing him next year, and so we picked him up in Baltimore, and then then we hit New York Comic Con. We loaded the car with like 500 books. We might have sold like 300, so we sold a lot. You know, I wouldn't have been able to fly, but so that was cool. My copies came early because I'm only one person, and I ordered like 1,500 extra copies. The rest went to the fulfillment center, so we got 1,800 copies being sorted and mailed right now. So
Right.
if you back the book, it's on the way. It's on the way.
Nice.
Just a little bit more time and it'll be there. But yeah, so I had the extra books, so I figured hit the show and get it out there. You know, I gave a lot of copies away, just to other artists and stuff. I wanted it to be like the buzz of the show. You know, I went and gave it to all the foreign artists, and a
Nice.
couple of French guys came over and got a copy, and a lot of people came and bought it and said they saw it online and stuff. So, and then if someone walked up to me and they had backed the book, I gave them an additional copy for free, just so they wouldn't be mad at me. So yeah, it was super cool, man. And we came up with the artist edition too, which has, I think, the best drawing I've ever done on it, like detail wise.
Man. Dude, that is sick. Is it all black and white, or is it like an artisan edition where it has like your original?
Yeah, it's all. There's no words, so it's like it's all black and white. I don't know if you guys can see this or not. It's too far back.
Yeah,
but like I drew it so large that like the ink lines are like hairs, you know. Looks like hairs and peppers on it or whatever. But yeah, we since I'm doing everything myself, I can just decide, well, I want an artist edition, so now I have one, you know. Like, and that's kind of cool, like not having to getting to a place mentally where you're not having to, and you guys are doing this now, but a lot of us that were trying to climb the big two ladder, we're looking for approval from editors, and those editors, I'm 41 years old, some of them are 25, 26, no offense to them, but I'm not in a position where when I come up with a story that I want, I'm not going to go ask someone for permission to make my art, you know. I just don't believe in that, you know. And so with Axe Wielder, when I made it, thank you, Justin. Thank you.
Justin over here saying that there's some great stuff going on here.
Yeah, I was just below me. It was beneath. I guess I'll say it this way: it was beneath me to ask another person if it's okay to make my art. You know, like like that was so out of the realm of possibility for me that I was just going to start working on John and make the book, because the way the story came to me is my first daughter was born and she got sick. We ended up having to live in the Ronald McDonald house. I'm doodling. I come up with this character. The character comes to me like in my time of need and when my career's on pause. And I'm like, man, I'm going to make something of this character. I'm going to make this moment mean something in my life. And I wasn't going to leave that hospital. My daughter's fine now, but I wasn't going to leave that hospital as a artist. Basically, it's kind of like with the story of John's this brutal killer, and he's this thief, and he's this kind of sinner, and then he gets this opportunity to be everything he's been, but for the right reason. He gets a great reason to kill, right? Yeah. And I thought, that's a great story, and I started writing that story out. But then I thought, for me as an artist, this is God saying, all right, artist, you think you're an artist, you go say something. Then go take what you've learned about being a new dad or life, or what you learned from your father or mentors or whatever, and put it into a book and say something. Actually say something. Don't draw someone else's story. What's your story? You know, who's your character? And I was very confident and very bold about coming home and working on that. And there was no piece of me that was going to ask another person on this planet if it was okay to make my art, you know? And I was I was dead set on that. And then of course it comes with all the other problems, like, how do I get it out there? How do I, you know, like that's a world of new problems, but being free of that, like must glad hand, must be nice to the right people, and just saying, you know, fuck it, I'm doing my thing, was the best feeling in the world. There's no better feeling than that, you know? And then I felt for the first time I was really creating what could be considered art, you know, which is, Mobius says, an artist encodes the world around him. So everything you've absorbed, take it in, then spit it back out through your hand, through craft, the best you can, and say something, you know. And what does that say about you and about the people around you? And hopefully you've absorbed enough stuff to where it's still popular, not just the strangest shit ever. You know what I mean? You know, like you want it to be marketable. But I don't know. I really liked there was something about the design of John too, with him. You know, John's this really machismo character, and I always associate Yeah, I always associate mustaches with machismo, but there's something in the story where he's taken down a peg. So I thought I'm going to break that mustache in half. I was like, you know what? I'm going to break his whole face in half. You know, I'm going to cut his whole face in half. And I thought he most people wouldn't do that. They're like kind of soft with a light scar or a bridge of the nose or something. But I
Yeah.
was like, no, I'll take a main character and make him a Two-Face. I will destroy him. And I really liked that there's some characters in, you know, like I really like what I got from my kids was they look at me and they don't see a fat guy. They see the strongest man in the world. They don't see a fat cartoonist that's too lazy sometimes, but they see like a literal god walking around amongst them, you know, when I walk into the room, right? And I wanted a character that you could prejudge with John. Like you look at him and you can judge me like, oh, it's going to be over violent, it's going to be gross, it's going to be whatever, but then use that as a Halloween mask to really hide a great heartfelt message. You know, like I think
Right.
art in a way can be like playing Halloween. Like you can hide these, you know, behind anthropomorphic characters like Nico does, or cool violent shooter superhero. You're just putting a mask on a moral play that if that heart is there and that morality tell is there, that's universal. You can put any kind of aesthetic on it. You can put stick figures. You can put bloody, no-faced man. You can put anything you want. And so I think in a real way, we're just putting a new coat on an old tale, you know. And that's what I kind of realized when I was creating John. So
Yeah,
Nice.
for sure. I mean, in the I was honored to get a preview copy from you, Nick, and I read through it, and it was fantastic. So what about some of those other character designs that you did? Because I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but all I got to say is Octopus. That's one of them. Horus is badass. He's kind of got, you know, the cycloptic thing going on. So where did you give some of that same thought you gave to John into those, or were those the other guys just kind of like, let me just come up with some dope ass stuff?
I think capturing the spirit, like Frank, the rigid squid, is in there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
that's very much my dad. My dad's name is Frank. You know, he's an
Okay.
old retired construction worker. You know,
Nice.
and I just excuse me. I imagine him getting pulled out of retirement. You know, and then I think Bloodbath, who's a character, he's kind of the new guy in the castle, who's full of gusto and piss and vinegar. He's like the version of me that I have to let go to be the version that John's gonna have to be at some point. He's not there yet in the story, book 2 and 3. Like John's story, he thinks he's gonna be this great warrior, but what it's really gonna be is something completely different, you know, by the time the story's done. He thinks he's gonna keep living that barbarian life, and that's clearly not gonna be what happens. And just like me, I think I'm gonna have to go keep living this art. Like I'm gonna be more of an artist. I'm gonna bet on myself. You know, everything's about me. But really, what I need to be is a great dad to my kids. You know, I need to be a better husband. So my lesson is going to come up too. And right now, it's about me though. So I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy my little bit of bloodbath while it's here. So yeah, the spirit of like maturing, being an older guy or a younger guy, and some of the personalities were me just capturing those spirits of some of those men or mentors in my life in those characters. The designs are just because, you know, you want to draw something cool. You know, I don't know if I have a puzzler in my life, you know.
Right.
But he's a weird character in there. Yeah. Yeah. So but yeah, some are just like weird bad guys, right? Like I really wanted to marry the Masters of the Universe aesthetic, which is like I call it muscle tech. It's like muscles and it's so interesting how that even became a thing, because like Mattel had bought the Conan, or Hasbro or Mattel had bought the Conan license, but it was too violent, so they buried it. But Star Wars was popular, so they just said, let's take the Conan aesthetic and Star Wars and mix it, you know? And that's how He-Man came about, and we'll sell it to kids. And I thought, man, what if you just took that but did it at a heavy metal Mobius level, you know? Like what if you took it seriously? And so like living in that kind of aesthetic while playing with these masculine roles and trying to hide, you know, moral stories behind this violent aesthetic was really the goal. So
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Ken.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like because we were just wondering about your week, but you already described like New York Comic Con and whatnot. Nico before the show he said like what was your like comic scene growing up? And well, you already mentioned like the contests you did and whatnot, but who are your like contemporaries that you would consider like these are the people that I'm competing against at the moment?
well, I guess we can rotate it back a little bit. Like I used to not read comic books as a kid. I never read comic books until I was like 17 or 18 years old, but I played with
Right.
toys way too long. Like, and I do think that playing with action figures, I think drawing comics now is just an extension of playing with action figures. Like I get away with it. Like when I get a new gig, like on Ninja Turtles or something,
Mhm.
it's always like I get to play with my action figures again. You know, you want to play with the Marvel toys, right? So you get to play with those, or get a Hulk gig or whatever you get to play with the Hulk figures again. And for me, me playing with toys too long till I was like 14 and it was getting weird, and then transitioning into drawing when I was like 17 or 18 kind of bridged that gap. And so like that was, and what I realize now with my kids is when they got those little figures, they've got little spirits and ideas for these figures as they're playing. And if they learn the craft of drawing, they could transition that to the page, and all of a sudden it's perfectly fine for them to continue doing it. So like I really try to encourage my children to play as much as possible, because I
Right.
do think they're storytelling. They're figuring out you can only climb the mountain of covers so many times and beat the guy. Then
Mm.
eventually you're going to figure out what a twist is. You know, eventually you're going to figure out another thing, and you're going to layer the story. And as you see other stories, you're going to learn more. And then when you get to our age and you keep doing it, you're going to find more clever and new nuanced ways to tell stories. So I love watching them and knowing what they're actually doing. They're actually like they're training themselves. They don't even know it because they're playing. But I think
Yeah.
that's all we have to do. Man, I don't know I don't know who I'm in competition with I can tell you guys that are amazing. Like James Herron is amazing, right? Like he's amazing. I don't know if I'm in competition with him. Like
I guess you could say like people that are
Nick Dragata. Nick Dragata is a close friend, and I think he's probably the best modern guy. He's a few years older than me. He's really great. I think Trad Moore is really great.
well, yeah.
Daniel Warren Johnson's really great. I started the Felix comic art group. Like it was me and Felix that started it, and then I got Dragata and a couple guys to come over.
Mm.
But I wrote every guy that I loved, and I guess those are the guys in my competition. But I think of them as my friends. Jeff, I wrote everybody, and was like, "Look, guys, Felix is making me more money than you guys make, but y'all draw better than me. So are y'all coming over or not?" And we eventually got everybody. You know, we got a lot of good guys. So I kind of collected my group of guys that I really respect, and at least the guys that we could get. But I don't know if I don't think any of our paths are the same. I think we all have our own ideas. That's what I realized too. Like with my idea with John, I kind of want every one of them now. I'll call them up and be like, we got to make our own icon in the industry. We got to we got to be we got to use the Hellboy model. We got to do this. But a lot of them are just like Dragata, when I called him and like pitched that when I was manic and tell him about the idea for John, he's like, that's your path, Nick. Like, that's what you want to do. That's your path. That's your thing. He's like super chill California guy, So, and he's right, like it's hard to get people to see your vision. Like whenever you step outside the circle, it's just like I talked about before, everything's a system. Like when I went with Zoop instead of Kickstarter, everybody's like, what's Zoop? What's Zoop? Well, you're making a huge mistake. Felix was like, because Kickstarter wrote me and said they'd give me the premiere spot or whatever, and they were like, they wanted John when they saw the samples, which was really great of him, really sweet. But I already gave my word to Zoop that I would go with Zoop. And so, but I told Felix, man, it's really tough because I gave Zoop my word, but Kickstarter's bigger, and this could be way bigger at Kickstarter, and I got to support my family. And Felix was like, delete all mentions of Zoop. from your social media. I was like, nah, I ain't doing that. I was like, nah, I ain't doing that. But it's like, if you do something different, everyone that loves you and is going to show concern for you if you step outside the box. But if you can make it happen, if you can build a path and you show that you can be successful, then other people will come. Build it and they will come. All the trite sayings are cliches because they're true. They don't go away because they stood the test of time. So I do think, like, if I can go and build Axe Wielder, make toys of Axe Wielder, make the story great. The story and the art have to be great. Like, I think a lot of people, when I see new artists, they're like, want the end result without earning and you don't even need craft. This is always a challenge for me. Like, chasing down Olivier Coipel might not be the path. It might just be drawing and writing your own stuff from your heart. And you're the only one that can produce that. And then that could be the hit. That's probably going to be the hit. But for me, I'm so ingrained in that chase down this guy from how I broke in. But there's yourself, and that can be a kid with a stick figure book or you with your own thing. That is where you want to be. And then there's the craft side. And then so much of chasing gigs is about doing the craft side. And I can only say that some people want the end result of either one of those two paths before I think they're ready. Sometimes, like, I think that is like, when I see a new artist, they're like super excited. Like, some Kubert School kids came up at New York Comic Con, show me their portfolios. They're really talented. Yeah, they're like really talented dudes and super cool. But like, you might have still 3 or 4 years. It's hard to hear that. It's hard to hear that it might take that long. But like, I would be insulted when I was younger and people told me that. They were right. Now I'd go back and work and be like, I'm going to show that bastard, that I'm going to be done in 6 months. But no, it would take 3 or 4 years. But I cut you off, Nico. But that self versus craft, I think you really want to get to self to be a true storyteller and artist.
Right.
And I don't know if you need craft at all. I really don't know.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere where I don't remember what it was, but you mentioned that you were a huge fan of Jason. I
love him. Yeah.
And I think that's like the prime example of what you're describing there. It's like Jason is like some of the most simplistic storytelling and figure drawing and kind of composition and backgrounds, some of the most simplistic stuff that you see, but man, is it effective, and like you said, it's kind of like, that's his self. He found it, he crushed it, now he's, making books after books and, has a full-time gig out of it. So I don't know, that is kind of,
no, he's like Jason. He's the Norwegian cartoonist Jason. He is fantastic. And one of my favorite books he did was I Killed Adolf Hitler, about an assassin that goes back in time and tries to kill Hitler. It's super cool. It's not the idea of him trying to kill Hitler. That's the idea, but he's in love with a girl who wants him to stop being an assassin. And he messes up the time stream, and he comes back and he's old and she's young. And she's like, I've been waiting around for you. And it's just mess. It's a messy relationship story. Like, all of his stories are love or relationship, but with the aesthetic of a werewolf running around or something, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But that's exactly what I mean. That guy is all self, and craft is great. It's very clean and simplistic, but he's got his characters down to icons. This is another thing too. You can go all the way down the path of craft until you're drawing realistic people. Now you're more aware of me and my fatness and my nose, but you're not hearing my message. You're more aware of the messenger than the message. And if you pare things down to icons, a smiley face symbol in every country around the world means happy to everybody. And you can interject your own happiness into it. If it's my face in all the Walmarts around the world, you're like, this guy's a freaking weirdo. You know what I mean? Like, buy diapers at Walmart. You'd be like, who's that guy? Yeah, there he is there, the genius himself. Yeah, his stuff is so good.
Yeah, really simplistic.
Yeah, very simplistic, but so effective, man.
Right.
It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah, there's him and his girlfriend there. Yeah, it's great, man. He's fantastic. So there's that. I think the pinnacle for me now is like marrying the two. Like, who are the guys that are masters at the craft? And I think he's like limited himself to be a master at what he's doing, like master the craft side, because he could draw rougher, but he's drawing very clean, very crisp wear, very exact. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Master the craft, master the self, the what's coming from you. And when those touch, that's like the pinnacle of storytelling. You know, for me, that's my new pyramid that I want to climb. And I oscillate back and forth. I don't know which one to. I think both is the answer now, you know, but because a great example is there you go.
Jerry,
Yeah, there's one.
Jerry Schaefer chiming in. Preach.
But like you can watch if a kid draws a stick figure book, like one of my friend's kids, I forget if I can remember the story exactly, but they drew a picture of their little brother running around naked after a bath. And it was a stick figure with 2 circles where the butt's at, right? Like a super cute drawing. Yeah, super cute drawing, right? And you knew exactly what that kid was doing because he didn't let craft get in his way. He could tell a whole story in that language because the instant you look at the cool thing about art is the instant you look at it, your brain downloads that this is the language, this is the visual language of this narrative. Now, this is the problem with art teaching. If that kid was just telling an honest story about a kid running around naked after taking a bath and not putting his clothes on, you see all the charm in the little butt cheeks and the honesty of the drawings. But if that kid starts drawing realistically, let's say they look at some comic book and are drawing a realistic turtle, all the adults will now come and say, "Oh, look how good you are." You know what I mean? And they'll pat you on the back because you're chasing craft. But I don't know if that kid wasn't right with the stick figures. You know what I mean? I don't know which path is which.
Yeah.
I think that the second you go down the path of craft, you break your natural hand and you break the honesty, the visual language that's coming out of your hand. That visual language you're breaking the matrix of it, you know, like you're now all of a sudden you're doing something else. And I think I have that problem in spades because I like Mobius and Quietly and Jeff Darrow and Seth Fisher.
Yeah.
Like I'm always going to be a guy that's kind of like those guys. You know what I mean? Right. So like I'm already corrupted. Like my PS5 system was already built on a Mobius knockoff system. You know what I mean? So I can only stack. You know, I can't erase. You know, like my core is already there.
Yeah.
So you say that, Nick, but at the back of Axe Wielder, you've got a bunch of process pages, you know, sketches and stuff you've done. And man, I love some of those like more sketchier line things you got going there. You know, some of the, you know, it's design stuff, so you know, you're not kind of, you know, concentrating on the precision so much. But man, like I feel a lot of good energy there. I mean, I could, you know, what it's sketches or whatever it may be, but you know, if you ever did like a little 1-page comic out of that, you know, I would love to see kind of like
so
that, you know, just
I've had so my artist friends and my editor love that stuff too. Yeah, because everything I turn in looks like that, but then the finish is this really mechanical, technical, overworked stuff, you know. But the actual heart of this grabbing the pin and going is a lot of that stuff in the back matter. Man, my throat's dry. Is in the back matter of John, and that is more me honestly just going at it, you know. And I do think that if I wasn't trained in a world of chasing down these other guys or having to have a so tight finish to compete with other people, and I just was drawing manically to get it out and to tell a visceral story, I do think that would be a great looking, like the guy who does Hero Bear with that kind of unfinished stuff where he still has that life and heart to it with that, you know, like I really enjoy that kind of stuff. But at this point, I'm just like, no, I'm going to blow everyone away with my crazy detail, you know, like I've invested too much in it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Ken.
I was about to say, yeah, that's a great point about the true, like, genuine lines that somebody is trying to craft with their work, even though they don't know how to draw it. It's like not PC to say, but it's like you see that a lot in these like porno drawings. Like people are just like, oh, I just really want to see it so bad right now. Like they'll rush to get to the drawing, and they're like really like when you look at it, it's like it doesn't look right. The ass is like off center, and it's just like, no, that one's like bigger than the other. Like it doesn't look right, but you could tell that they were so into that drawing that they were so trying to get it out that it looks like authentic.
It does.
It's so
it
authentic
totally
to
does.
them, and you can read it perfectly. Like even though it's not a perfectly rendered idea, or it's like not perfectly like shaded or whatever. I see a lot of stuff that looks completely dead, that looks like perfect, like, oh, this is like perfectly rendered and whatnot, but it's like there's no
it's killed by craft, killed by craft, but no life. I follow some of those accounts. I will never learn anything from those, like porno, especially anime porno stuff. I'm like, what is going on with this,
Yeah.
But those drawings are so interesting.
Look at that.
They're so face when you say that. Those drawings are so interesting. They're kind of lopsided. They're kind of wrong.
Yeah.
The dialogue is always like too perverted too.
It's
like
stupid, yeah.
They are in it. They are so in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Nick, kind of going back to Axe Wielder here. So one of the kind of the most profound things that I found in the whole package at the end was at the end, I think it was Hickman talking about whenever he first, read through your script or whatever, he kind of says at the end or something, he's like, this has a full, complete thought in the entire package. And that's kind of something it's honestly been on my mind a lot lately, because it's kind of like, not only is it like a full story, or full, with a beginning, middle, and end, but there's a complete thought, a full circle of a thought there. And I thought that was something kind of really profound. I hadn't heard it, said like that before. So I'm kind of curious, had you kind of considered that before, or was that just something that like happened organically as you did the book?
It's something that happened with the book. There's a frame narrator in Axe Wielder John of this 12-year-old girl named Basil Toymaker, and you don't really know her name in book one, but she's kind of telling the story of John for the viewers who haven't read it yet. But thinking about the point he's trying to make, even though it might only be like 3 or 4 sentences, or maybe a paragraph spread out across the whole trade paperback. Mm-hmm. But thinking about that statement as this isn't a good example, but you have all these ingredients and all these scenes. It's like a burrito or a piece of sushi with all these things in it, but you really need to hold it together with a tortilla or a seaweed wrap, right? You got to hold all that together. So completing one thought throughout the whole thing was something I had to learn to do. I had tried to write another thing, and Hickman was like, well, you got to put it in something. And I never really knew what that meant. Then with John, it made sense. Like it clicked. And so I did that. And her thing is like, I really like unreliable narrators. And with her opening, she admits that she has a problem with lying. So her dad says it's best to write down her lies and tell stories,
Yeah.
Right.
And so, but then she goes on to be a young kid and be like, well, there's good reasons to lie, though. You can make a story better that might not be true. You can not hurt someone's feelings. You can do this. And then the point with John is maybe he's got good reasons to kill, maybe there are good reasons for it. Without that, and I cut that originally from the original script, but she just wouldn't go away. When I was sitting down drawing it, these words would keep coming back to me. So then I told my editor about it. He's like, dude, you have to put that in. So I put it in, and then it was in the version that John got. And he's like, he said that like a complete thought, like thinking about putting a complete thought, even if it's across a whole trade paperback and it's not that long, making a point, and in book 2 now, I'm using that example, and it's the one thing I keyed on too when Hickman said it, Nico. I'm the exact same thing. That's my favorite note. And now in book 2, I'm literally framing her frame narration. She's telling the story of John, and she's telling it for a real reason, a good reason you'll learn in book 2. But the thing about the stories that, like right now on the writing for that, it's the stories that we tell ourselves. Because John's going to find this book that he's in, you know, like later on, and he's going to see himself in a different light. He's going to see himself as Basil sees him, not as the world sees him, right? And then all of a sudden, writing wise, I'm saying, okay, what are some really great points I can make about the stories we tell ourselves versus the stories that are told about us versus the truth, you know?
Right.
And then when can I make that point in the story that has the most impact for the page turn and the moment, you know, when it's most earned, so it
Right.
feels like another complete thought. So then when you get it and you eat this whole story and it's got blood and guts and all this stuff, you at least get one great point or one great sentiment that you've earned. And that's how I'm writing book 2. And this is exactly how I wrote book 1 too. And literally I keyed on that statement about making a complete thought was my favorite note of John's in the back of the book. And I do think it's super interesting to think about a way to organize your story, you know?
Yeah, no, it's excellent. I mean, when I read that, like that's something I'm always going to think about now, you know, from now on, kind of, you know, even with, you know, short kind of 20 pages or something, you know, complete thought is kind of, you know, the northern star when you're, you know, writing, drawing and all that stuff. I mean, that was some awesome stuff, man. I loved it.
Dude, I love back matter, and I kind of threw that together, but John had mailed, he was kind enough to, like, he printed out the script and marked it up and mailed it to me. So I told him, hey, I'm using this as back matter. And then I had so many sketches that I just overlaid it, but I love back matter, and I don't think a lot of people do it. And so I was like, man, I'm going to make this back matter incredible if I can, you know, like I'm just going to put everything in there because I want to show people how much work went into this too, you know? If you get it, you just think it's blood splatter and guts, and I don't think you get how much work actually went into it, you know? So back matter to me is like showing off a little bit, you know?
Yeah, for sure. You gotta.
Yeah. I was just about to say, like, oh, did you want to?
No, I was pulling up a comment here.
Nice.
Smart RN1 says that he's got Axe Wielder John on the way, and he's so stoked.
Nice.
Sweet. Thanks, brother. I think I know that. I think it's my buddy Shane. I think there's a few guys with Texas icons, but I think it's my boy Shane.
Yeah, I've been wondering who Smart RN is. But yeah, I was about to say, like, I think the best comic artists are the best comic creators are the ones who don't think of comics as just comics. Because, like, I see a lot of that online these days where it's like, oh, I'm making a comic book, and it's just like a comic to them. It's not an extension of themselves. It's not like a true, authentic expression. What do you like? What do you see Axe Wielder as from yourself, if that makes sense?
I mean, what I think it's going to be the most me I can make it. I think it's going to be everything I've absorbed in this room and in our library room where you sleep and where you stay over all those books. All the blood guts from all the action movies I love. I want it to represent as much machismo, stupid stuff that I love, but also like the heart that I see in family, in self-sacrifice. Like I want it all, you know, I want every bit of it to be me. And I have no doubt that there are going to be other people that were raised in the same culture that I was raised in that have the same sentiment about family. And like, you know, my dad's getting older now. He's a construction worker. He's all busted up, but he's like the greatest man, right? Like, love him to death. And like, I want him to know that I see him, you know? I want him to know that. Like, I know what you did for me, you big fuck. Like, I know you busted up your shit so I could go play with my cartoons for the rest of my life. You know, like, that's a cool thing. And like, I want everything. And I want to make the book I want to make unapologetically. And at the end of the day, it's going to be me. It's going to be the me that I hope it is. You know, I hope people know that when I'm loud and I like to arm wrestle and I bust balls, that it's done with a big heart behind it, you know? And so I hope when people read this book, they get like this violent over the top, crazy thing, manically drawn, insane in so many ways, but also has a little bit of heart to it too. You know, I don't think you can accidentally, I don't think if you make something honestly that it can't be you, you know, like
Right.
I think it's gonna be you. Like another thing Mobius said was an artist can't make a Yoplait label without putting some bit of themselves into it. You know,
Right.
you're going to say something about the designs you like, something about the colors you like, something about the pictures you like. It's going to say something about you, you know? And so I think, you know, obviously I'm in a place where I want to think I'm doing that, right? The goal is to try to do that, right? But I think it's the only place I want to be. I talked to Jeff Darrow about it when I started this a little bit. He'll call me from France sometimes. He's the sweetest guy. And I was like, man, I'm not asking permission to make my book, dude. I think that's the stupidest thing. And he's like, he's like, kind of like, now you get it, kid. Like now you get it. Like I think that's where we're supposed to be. And I think this new territory of crowdfunding and building your online platform, we're still in so much power from the big two mechanism. Like we're still in the means of promotion. We're still in for the means of production. We're not stealing it. We're learning it. You know, we're learning how to go around that old system and begging for crumbs. And granted, I love the big two and I love to work for them. It's great, but that's not the work I should be doing. You know, the work I should be doing is the work I'm doing now. And now everything I got to do is figure out how to consistently do that, you know? So like we're artists, right? Like we shouldn't be, maybe we want to illustrate other stories, but you're only limiting yourself to your lines. Then I really think writing and drawing is the way. I think, but also not taking the writing side lightly either. Like you got to read your how-to books. You got to do all the work you did. And we know it's a lot to get good at drawing. You got to put all that into writing too. Like I take all that very, very seriously. And I think some artists are just like, well, I draw well, I'll just do this. But I think, no, you've got to think about story beats, page turns, like everything, you know?
Yeah.
They're like, it'll just be an art book at the end of the day.
Yeah. Or it won't have the, it's got to sing, you know, it's got to be like I think about the aesthetics of John and it's over the top masculine stuff, but there's a soft side to it too. And so it's like a drum beat, boom, boom, boom. And you think you're only going to get screaming heavy metal, but then you get a melody too. Then you get some harmony too. And then it becomes a balanced piece of something, right?
Yeah.
That's just aesthetically. But then story-wise, I've got this soft female frame narrator with all this blood and violence, and that kind of softens it out too. And I think people like the balance, you know? Yeah. They don't want one note. You know, you can be one note and you can do it well, but I think you think of it like a musical, like a piece of like a music note or something. You know what I mean? Like you're writing something with layers to it that has a tapestry of things that are referencing one another and playing off of one another. But I would say if anyone goes down this path, like you better read like On Writing and Save the Cat and all the other books, you know, screenplay, like you better fall in love with the storytelling side too. You know, that might not, I'm obviously not the greatest writer in the world, but like when I started this, I was like, man, I draw pretty good. And I can either launch I can launch other people's writing careers or I can launch my own. And I was like, I'm a pretty good artist. I'm pretty good enough to launch my own writing career. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, and then my great takeaway, and we talked about this beforehand, but I'm going to go ahead and fire it at you guys. I realized all my favorite writers, Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, Robert Kirkman, Rick Remender, Brian Michael Bendis, Donnie Cates, all of them have one thing in common, other than they're all fantastic writers. Do you know what the other thing is? You let me say it? Do I get to say it?
Go for it.
Everyone's a failed cartoonist, baby. They're all failed cartoonists. So when I started this, I was like, well, can I write? I don't know. But me compared to those guys, I'm just like those guys with a little less quit in me, I guess, so I can do it too. Right. You know, so I said, I'm going to write and draw for myself. And it was an easy decision then because but then that also meant they spend all that time learning how to write, so you better take it seriously too. You
Right.
better think about it and not just start drawing pages without knowing where you're going. I know that's a good way to start, but there's a point where the story starts creeping in if you do that. Like, okay, well, where is this going exactly, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like think about what you're doing and be exact. I don't think when Jason starts a story, he doesn't have an exact he doesn't know exactly where he's going. He's not accidentally making I killed Adolf Hitler. He's thinking about this, how it develops in the relationship. He's not just, I'm going to draw my cat face people this morning and see where it goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to take the craft of writing very seriously too.
Right.
Yeah, for sure, man. No,
I was
that's
about
good. Good.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, what are you working on with like Axe Widow right now? And then like where do you see it going, like as an ultimate form, like video games, movies, like what do you see with that?
Man, I would love for it to be video games and movies. I'm going to try to manifest it all. I'm working on book 2. I'm laying it out, and I'm laying it out really tightly. And then I'm taking pictures of the layouts and repenciling them one time digitally. And then I'm building up a stack of those to print out in ink. There's going to be 7 volumes, which is the most insane thing. There's going to be 7 volumes of John to get the whole story out. But it's a whole saga, this whole journey of him and everyone he loves and everyone around him. It's a whole thing.
Last time we talked, it was 6.
Well, there's like the end sequence. I don't know if book 7 is the epilogue to book 6 or not. I don't know if it needs to be its own story or not.
Okay.
I'll tell you what that is off camera, but I don't want to ruin it. But I think you know what it is though.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I want to make it my thing, man. I think Hellboy's the model, man. Right? Like, make your guy, and I think manga's the model too. I think something that I had a lot of help from a guy named David Hyde, who's Mike Mignola's publicist. And he read it and he was like, I know he's a big manga fan, but I think those guys have their own voices. Like you get like Crazy Food Truck or Chainsaw Man or whatever. You're getting these unique, weird stories that aren't all the same reference. Like Hickman talked about this with all the writers in comics in the Western Hemisphere. They're all kind of watching the same stuff and looking at the same stuff. So all their, bad science Manhattan Projects, black science, they're, you know what I mean? They're all kind of doing dystopian. They're all doing, just because we're all percolating and popcorn popping in the culture at the same time with your ideas.
Right.
So you get Volcano and you get Dante's Peak. You get, these things just pop up at the same time. But when you do something that's purely you, like, or maybe from a different culture altogether, like manga, it's just weird. Like, I don't think Axe Widow works as live action anything, but I think it works as a comic. I think it's meant to be a comic. I think the second you realize what's going on with John, you're like, you can't shoot that live action. It's just too insane.
The action sequences where he's like spinning in midair and cutting everybody.
Blood raining with like dismembered body parts falling everywhere.
It's literally impossible to do that.
It's super, but I think what David liked about it when he read it was he saw the uniqueness, and then I was unapologetically going after it. Like somebody's like unapologetic. I'm gonna make a puzzle man made of puzzle pieces. I'm gonna make this Axe Widow with no face. I'm gonna do this, and it was just throwing this stuff out that didn't feel like maybe other stuff in the market. Like, and I feel like when I read manga, I'm getting stuff like, I love when I pick up a book and I'm like, where did this come from? Why did this person make this? When you pick up a weird ash can or a weird manga and you're like, what? Like, what is going on? Like, that's my favorite feeling when I read comics, and I think I would love John to be grounded, but also have a little bit of that, marry the two.
Yeah, I think
because you were saying how like everything is like percolating at the same time at the same level, but then when you like make something like Axe Widow John or like a crazy manga like Chainsaw Man, it's like it goes that level above to where now everybody's trying to reach to catch up to that. Like, what the fuck is he doing with that? Like he's cutting people in the middle there. Like they're now trying to come up to reach that level, and that's the new. I guess we're all making that new level that people are gonna start percolating as like, oh, these crazy ideas and whatnot.
Or maybe you can't. Maybe it's just like it's so weird that other people can't. Like the next guy that makes a barbarian, but like, oh, that's the thing too with John. I was like, man, nobody's really owned the axe. You know, we have like axe cop, and there's like a like death dealer has an axe, but usually it's like the little short, stubby Lord of the Ring guys with his axe. Like you're not doing axes, right? Like I'm gonna own axes. I'm gonna put 58 axes on this dude and give him no face. Like you can't out axe me now. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? You're not gonna out axe wielder John. Like I have the axe wielder. So like I claim a weapon and I claim a character for that weapon. Like it's like a big swoop, you know, like I guess the next guy that puts 100 axes on him, they're still it'll just be copying, you know, me, you know. So like the next guy that has a chainsaw for a face is just like it almost like you claim you go so far outside the percolating what everyone's doing that you shoot off into this weird distance and you claim your own plot of land that's like too far away for people to mimic. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
it's same with like manga like Naruto and stuff. Like he's got a claim on ninjas, and then the guy who does One Piece, he's got a claim on pirates. It's like who's the next pirate guy or who's the pirate guy doing it right now?
No, you got to go do you got to go do ping pong. You got to go do you got to go do K-pop stars. You got to go do, you know what I mean? And that's what's cool about it. They're all like claiming their own weird stuff. And I think that's so cool, man.
Right. There is one for ping pong already, actually.
Oh yeah. Soccer, ping pong, everything. It's crazy.
I think my favorite weapon. So John has like, it's like the keychain with all like the axes on it. They're just like flipping all around and stuff. It's dope stuff.
Yeah. I love the idea. I put that on him because I was like, man, he's going to just you think he's going to grab one, but he grabs the whole circle of them and he clubs somebody with them. I was like, I just really wanted to draw that. So I was like, yeah, that's how he's going to cut somebody, you know, shred them in pieces.
It's dope stuff.
What's up, Gabe? Just had a friend in the comments.
There you go. Joining the pod. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. Ken, you got anything else you want to ask Nick? We got one last little question here for the spirits, but if you have anything left in your
I just wanted to like transition into like the horror stuff, like the
stuff. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going, since it's we're Halloween's right around the corner. We got a few days until then. Just kind of wanted to go around the horn, kind of see each of you guys give me a favorite horror movie and a favorite horror comic, and just kind of chat a little bit about those, man. Ken, let's kind of start off with you, man. What you got? Anything there?
I don't really like horror's always scared me from like when I was a kid, but when I got older, it was like, okay, now I kind of get it, but I still wasn't like really into it. But I would say like my favorite horror comic is this manga called Blame, and it's not really a horror comic per se. It's more like this guy is just traversing this weird world and killing monsters with his like insane gun. So it's like he has this gun that's as big as like a little handgun, but when he shoots it, it's like it shoots so far, it shoots out like miles away, and like it'll blow a hole in anything, and it'll blow a hole in all the terrain that comes across the path of the beam, and it's so badass. Nick has that book, and I'm always looking at it in the like when I come to his house, I'm just like, damn, that's so cool. And like basically the whole comic is built on the rule of like whatever's coolest, I'm gonna draw it. Like there's no story, like I don't care about the story at all. It's like the author is just like, this is just the vehicle to draw the coolest shit I can imagine, and all of it just happened to be like a horror theme, horror aesthetic. The monsters are scary looking and weird, and they don't make sense. It's like they don't have an ass to kick. Like you can't find it doesn't have a human anatomy, so you're just like, how do I kill this thing? well, you have this gun that you could just shoot and it'll blow a hole in anything. So
Hmm.
that's my favorite horror comic because it's just like crazy and insane, and I really like the aesthetic of the surrounding, like the surroundings, the buildings, the all of that is just so really weird and well thought out. And the artist, he was actually an architect before making that, so I think that had something to do with it.
That's dope. What was the name of that one? One more time.
It was called Blame by Tsutomu Nihei.
Blame. Okay.
Yep.
Sounds dope, man. I'm gonna have to note that one. Check it out.
Yeah, and he has another one called Biomega, and it's about it's about similar like subject matter, but it's like really cool, both of them.
Nice. What about movies, Ken?
I got nothing for movies. I just
nothing for
never.
movies?
I like horror spoofs, but not really like the movies that
Yeah.
like Michael Myers was really I watched a lot of that as a kid.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, but that was just
Yeah.
I'll do an extra movie for Ken. I'll do an extra Hellraiser.
That's good, dude. Hellraiser. I remember the first time I watched Hellraiser. I mean, this was back when I was a kid, man. It was just the absolute, probably the most frightened I've ever been in a movie watching that first. It's a creepy ass movie, dude.
Did you see it in theaters?
No. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it on like VHS or whatever it was in back then. But I watched. They had like the Hellraiser remake recently. It was on Hulu. Not great, which was disappointing because like if you make that movie nowadays, it should be pretty damn awesome. But didn't love it. But Hellblazer, yeah, Hellblazer's definitely a good one. What about you, Nick? What you got for comics and movies?
Two movies, my two favorite of the last 10 years horror movies. One's like fun, silly. You'll probably love it, Ken, if you watch it. And then the other one is like serious, but not. It's not like not metaphysical. So no ghost, but it's still kind of creepy. Is Green Room? Did you guys watch Green Room at all?
No.
Yeah. Like
so Green Room's like a haunted house movie, right? Like you got the guy with the chainsaw running around. You got, you know what I mean? They're all stuck in the green room, and that was fantastic. I love that it was like a grounded, like haunted house movie. Because the haunted people, the monsters were people, and I love that one. And then if you guys like kind of like B movies that are silly, something like Cabin in the Woods, but Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Have you ever watched Tucker and Dale versus Evil?
I've heard about it a ton, and there's like a show too, isn't there?
I don't know if there's a show, but the movie's great. It's Tucker and Dale versus Evil, and it's like two rednecks that buy a dilapidated old like shed out in the woods, and everyone assumes they're the killers, and it's just this. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. It was a really good surprise, kind of like a really fun B movie, but really great for Halloween. And then I'll go with the master, John G. Ito or whatever. The first book I read of his was I don't know the name of it, but like the sharks and the fish were coming out of the water with legs. Have you ever seen that one, Ken? You know
I've heard
what
of
it's called?
Yo.
Okay, yeah. I read that one. That was super creepy, and just speaking to his work, like the way he hits those like those faces in the eyes, the emotion that he gets, and just the creepy weirdness of his stuff, the aesthetic kind of adds so much to the weirdness of the story. So I thought that one was really cool. I
think so. Junji Ito, I read No Longer Human. That book it's so dark and depressing, but damn, it's good. It's like based off of a true story of I want to say it's like a Japanese writer that went crazy and like killed himself or something. But he did am I right on that description? It's called No Longer Human, but it's based off of a true story.
I think somebody else did that, and that writer actually killed himself. Junji Ito is still alive.
Yeah, but Junji Ito did like an adaptation of
he did?
That guy's life or book that guy wrote. Yeah, it's called No Longer Human. Yeah.
Is it sharing?
Oh yeah, let me share. Come on, let me see here. Here we go.
Oh, okay, I didn't know he did his own version. That's cool.
Yeah, no Longer Human. That's it right there.
Right.
Yeah, it's good, but I mean, it's not a fun time. It's very dark book. Yeah, it's good stuff though.
Nice.
Nico,
Um,
have you seen the Witch? Have you seen the Witch?
yes, The Witch is good, man.
The
Yeah, I love the
Village
Witch too. No,
with
the
two
Witch.
V's.
The Witch.
Yeah.
The Witch. Yeah, the Witch, and then Hereditary was made by the same dude. I don't know if you've seen if
I
you've
haven't
seen
seen that one.
Hereditary. Yeah, it's good. That's kind of that's so in terms of my movies. So it's actually kind of related to comics because I learned of it through a Stephen Bissett interview, and he was talking about David Cronenberg films, and a movie called The Brood came out in like 1979 or something. And he was talking about how it was like Cronenberg's like best movie that he's done. And he wrote like a whole like essay, kind of breaking it down and everything. So I heard of it through there, and I went to go watch it a few years back. Man, it's an incredible movie.
Called The Brood.
Psychological, yeah, the Brood is what it's called. It's like a psychological body horror movie. Of course, there's his signature body horror stuff in it, but it's very psychological, kind of like we were talking about earlier, Nick. There's a thought in there, which is pretty profound. Love that movie. I'm a huge into like the monster movies, so American Werewolf in London, absolutely love it. I think it's like some of the best practical effects ever. The werewolf at the end like looks real. I'm sorry, it looks real, and like that shit was all made without graphics, and all completely practical stuff. So those are kind of my two movies. Comics wise, Harrow County, Cullen Bunn and Tyler Crook, really good kind of um, town horror kind of thing. Tyler Crook is, he does like very painterly stuff, so I'm super into that. And Old Head by Kyle Starks. It's like a horror comedy, has like some dope ass vampire stuff in it, and just like some some wild shit. Super fun time. But
Nice.
Did Kyle Starks draw that one or just write it?
he drew it too, so that's one of the ones that so he wrote and drew it, and Chris Schweizer did the colors on it.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
dope.
I see those guys collaborating together now. So
Oh yeah,
they're both fantastic.
yeah, man. Yeah, I was at Heroes Con last year, or I mean, sorry, this past year, and I got to speak with both of those guys for a good while, and super dope dudes. But Ken, you got anything else for Nick, or you want to kind of close out here?
No, I really don't have any extra questions. But if Nick had anything he wanted to, just impart to the viewers and whatnot.
Well, first off, thanks for having me on. It means a lot. Finally to get on the show, it means a lot.
Oh my God.
But
Full circle.
but yeah, I would just say I think you guys are doing good with building this podcast up and getting it out there. Ken, I think it's you that's doing the cuts and clipping some of the stuff out. I think that's really smart too. And getting it out on social media.
Yeah, just little bits here and there, and we just recently got an editor, so he's helping out with that too.
Nice. I think that's really good. I think keep grinding, and everyone out there, like, make this your thing. Like everyone else is going to be into lifting weights or doing marathons or shopping or watching Netflix, but make comics your thing. If you make it your thing, and make it your pastime, eventually it'll be your full time. If you keep working at it. So, and every bit that you give it, it'll give back. At the beginning, there will be no returns. You will get nothing. But eventually, there's like people who analyze this. Like the more you invest, like when you invest in yourself, it's like you're making $50 an hour if you're investing in yourself. So eventually that money will come. Eventually the success will come. And if not, if you're doing it because you love it, which is the reason why you got to be doing it anyway, to keep doing it, you're going to make stuff that you love. So stick with it and keep kicking ass.
Awesome, dude. Thanks for those words. Justin says comics grind is a lifestyle. I agree, baby.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Nick, go ahead and just kind of tell the people where they can find you on like Instagram and all that, where they can maybe potentially buy Axe Builder online right now. I don't know if they can or not, but if you
Yeah,
have
we're
any,
gonna wait till it's fulfilled. Like I already kind of messed up by selling a few copies early because I got mine early, but we're gonna wait until the campaign's fulfilled. And then the main thing is if you go to severedtoys.com, we're doing a pre-sign up for this guy next year. Fully articulated 7 inches of axe wielding mayhem.
Nice.
But that is probably the site currently, that's likely the site where we're going to put the book, because I want to send people who want the book to look at the toy. So I got him some copies, but we're not going to release those until late November after the campaign's fulfilled. So if you want to find me on social media, I'm just Nick PITARRA right there on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. And if you want a copy of John, whenever that's available, I'm going to post that to my socials. So I'll tweet that out in a month or so before Christmas. So yeah, just follow me on socials. And if you have any questions, hit me up, and I'll be glad to blab in your ear like I did tonight.
Awesome. Ken, how about you, man? Where can everybody find you?
Everyone can find me on Twitter pretty much every day. I'm on at thecomicsgrind. And I'm also on Instagram at comicsgrind. You can also find me on Global Comics. You can find Air Rider High School Hero. That's my webcomic. It's on Global Comics. It's available free. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. And you guys can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Nico Writes. You can also follow me on my Substack at nicorodriguez.substack.com. But other than that, thank you guys so much for joining this week, and we will see you next time.
Peace.